What's up, everybody? Hope you guys are well. I am Lilita Mawoza, but normally when I'm on radio, I would say through your airways and on the hour, I am Ulili. But I'm coming to you guys through your screen and not only by my voice. I am Ulili, guys. And yeah, this is the first episode of Rising Sunshine podcast. And the whole reason why we're starting this podcast is that we feel as if, as young people, we don't have concrete sound voice, and so we're trying this new thing. And by we, I'm not coming in alone. Where I might be the host of the show, but we have Wapiwe Kant, who's also
hi there,
doing sound and editing and everything. So it's just the two of us right now, but that's cool. And the main reason why we're starting this podcast again is we feel as if there's not enough voice for young people. So this is why we're trying to talk about this. So it is essentially about the transitionings of young people from early teenagehood to young adulthood. It is also right now where we're literally at the brink of whether we'll be unemployed or unemployed. So there's a lot of things that we're facing right now. And we're not just only students, we have lives, right? So how we're tapping into social spaces, right? Relationships, friendships, and building future workspaces, right? So, and also things that are also affecting us societally and how we react to that as young people. The topic that we're covering. But before that, I want us to also share our social media platforms. I will give chance to my team member to also share his. So on Facebook, I don't want to say it because it's weird. I go by the name of Umacha Makapata. And the reason why I went go by the name, it's an incorporation of my clan names. And then on TikTok, I am Lily_M, and same as on Instagram, it's Lily_M. And those are just my socials. So if you want to follow me, please do. And then right into the topic of the day. So I did say that we were talking about how we react to societal issues that are happening around. So I don't know if you guys have heard, but we have a e-hailing versus taxi industry war happening that resulted into a young man being unalived, which is mostly saddening and, crazy that we're living in times right now that a life had to be taken over something that could be spoken about, something that a proper dialogue could have, occurred and then reached a betterment solution. So as somebody who is like, when I first got to hear what is e-hailing, and somebody was like, no man, the apps that we use, your Bolts and whatever, I was like, oh, okay. So to a person that doesn't know what e-hailing is about, e-hailing is basically cab services, private services that we have for transportation, your Bolts, your Ubers and whatnot, right? So there's this fact, right, between taxis and Bolt drivers, so hold on Bolt drivers. And it was resulted into somebody being killed. And as somebody who's a consumer for both taxi and Bolt, I found it quite disturbing. I, for one, preferably do not like using the taxis, but yeah, man, we're just gonna go into it and have a full-on discussion with my co-host. There's also the cameraman behind, which is Wapiwe Kant. We're gonna be hearing and having his thoughts and how we basically navigate the space and what are our thoughts about that. But yeah. Hi guys, thank you guys for joining us once again. Like I did say in the manage, I'm not gonna be alone. I have with me my co-pilot, Wapiwe Kandi, who has started us again what his job is gonna be for this podcast, and basically socials. And we're gonna dive into the conversation about e-hailing. But first, please introduce yourself.
Hi everyone, my name is Wapiwe Kant. As she has said before, I'm the tech guy. I'm behind the screen. I'm behind the camera, doing everything, doing the sound and stuff like that. And, just being ahead of everything. Because it's only the two of us, and that's what we've got to do. Yeah, bro. Yeah, and of course, how can I say? Tin handles them, and I know them. I'm on YouTube. My YouTube channel just started this year is APX24. Yeah, it's under what's this? Yeah, at APX24, which is on YouTube. You can check me out. Then I'm also on TikTok as at upcoming_somebody. And then my Instagram is at AP_Kant. Yeah. AP Kant. Yeah, you can check me there.
Wait, so you've never, I just wanted to talk about your name. I'm big on names before we go to the alien thing. So did it come naturally when people were starting for you AP? Like, was it like a friend who was like, you know what, I'm an AP type of thing? How did you come up with that name?
The thing is, like, my name is, how can I say, it's very simple because you're born abanye abantu amagama like come they easy, you know, it can be called in multiple different ways. Like I know like your Lily Tane can call Lily, Lil, they're born those things. They can practice and they have so many ways to pronounce it. For me, it was just like that, it was just AP.
I thought it was gonna be a situation when you started having, because I had quite an explorative journey about my name. At some point in high school, I was a little T. Dude. And I decided I've always had things for names and wanting to shorten them and play around with them. But enough about that. So this podcast, Rising Sunshine, how do you feel about the name?
With the name? Because with everything that's happening, we're still getting there, and as I said, we're gonna have a new name. But I like it now. Like, it's unique and something like that. You gotta go fighting against our open chats and whatever. So we need to have our own little our own little name about and I like it, man, because as the youth we need to have like a rising symbol, a rising sunshine symbols, a new beginning, a new kind of hope, you know, rising sunshine, you know, but when the day ends, the sunrise means but there's a new day that's gonna happen, there's something new that's happening, there's a bright future ahead of you.
I mean, dude, talking about future, Sigland in my e-hailing, right? And e-hailing seemed to be like the future for us in the early 2010s. Because I just looked at my app, my search, it shows that in South Africa it was launched in 2013, same launch around Info Times. And back then it was more like a privatized thing. You know, wow, I'm about Chile. But now, even if I was like in any other place, in Cape Town, whatever, but the Bolt thingy, I was just requesting and I get my ride type of thing. And predominantly, we've always had taxi drivers, right? Right now, I think 15 Rand quality takes, you know, netting. It's cheap, accessible, and bad. The downside of it, it's crazy. So
7 Rand,
dude, 15 but it's free and accessible, and I feel like free and accessible. But to have a quick rundown of why we're talking about this right now. Currently, there's somebody who passed away due to the violence between taxi drivers and e-hailing drivers. But all of this, ngabantu that essentially in the same business, which is transportation, right? And predominantly taxi drivers has always been free and accessible and for everyone. Like uba mhlambi ndiyaphuma ekuseni ngo-6-7 fumana iteksi ndiyakhola ndiyahamba. Same as with e-hailing. Now I'm just like requesting, but I'm at this address, like cash or card. Now it has so much enhancements, but I want you to give me your understanding of what e-hailing is.
Okay, of course, e-hailing, of course, it'd be a transport service that's here in South Africa. Of course, it's been around in other places, like overseas. It's been long been there and stuff like that. And it was a really, I can say, a big thing that was introduced into South Africa because not only that, it did give a kind of alternative taxi and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It was an alternative form of transport, and with its multiple features, it actually gives you totally different things. As for, of course, for me, an example, I kind of did work a little bit for Bolt.
I was going to ask you about that, but I have you. But it's essentially the same thing of transportation.
Yeah.
But I like the word that you use as an alternative. You know, when you see with the taxi industry, it's free, accessible, let's pay by 15. But sometimes, bro, you're having a bad day and you don't want to speak to anyone.
Exactly.
And, maybe you just have a little bit of chankura in you and you're like, you know what? What is a young 97 Rand or what is a young 50 Rand to spend? Yeah,
exactly.
And so I feel like now they became more accessible, even COVID-19 times, where now we had to, but I was 15 seats and now I think like the anxiety grew into it that preferably now, if I have to choose between e-hailing and taxi, I will choose e-hailing. Right?
Much better e-hailing.
And umlo wabo essentially uthi into yobana taxi industry is a regulated industry. They have a structure, yabona bane organizations that they report to, yabona zonke ezazinto umzekelo kukusokha Codeta.
I think it's Codesa,
something
like
along
but we'll figure it out.
Ukhona no uncedo, yabona they have regulations and they're like these people are not regulated. So they're coming with that. And an honest fact, e-hailing is not regulated.
How?
In a manner of like they don't have an organization that they report to. So in terms of like they only have their companies like Uber. So for example, if you have a problem, you can only report to Uber. Unlike you can have like somebody who's up, like let's say here in Makanda, right? There has different organizations. Sometimes about it takes a low to taxi. When like I want you can report to the office and then go that person will dead with it's more everything now on e-hailing is on right? So there's no physical entity body that can, if there's problems that people can report to. They use now the taxi drivers are using that thing, these things people are not regulated, they're taking bread of our mouth,
you said that point which you are taking bread out of the mouth, like how? Like
it doesn't make sense. I'm trying to because it doesn't make sense that taxi drivers are the taxi industry is fighting that they're losing business because of these e-hailing drivers, whereas the people that are choosing, it's not like e-hailing are coming into our house and picking us up by force. We are the ones who are
going for that service.
We're going for that service because we've seen in the urban, and we're not here to bash about the taxi industry. But let's be honest, bruh. Driving Yababandu is so fucking insane.
Exactly with that. Number one, they drive on the wrong side of the road. Number two, they are driving erratically and they don't care about the rules of the road. And they forget that they're carrying passengers, which is their main source of income. So what do you expect now?
I think I was either on Facebook or TikTok, but I was either one of the social apps, and I think this is in Cape Town. It takes take a traffic when I was traffic at 5 p.m. like when like people are coming in, back to work and whatever. He's full on traffic, but tell me why are these taxi drivers going? Bruh, if you can put up, I will show you. If you can put up, you will see the madness. And Sikulisi, you wanna learn, and get also let's not forget the attitude there, but they're very rude.
Being a driver, like me I have my own car and just driving. Maybe a Bechin is not as much as
I don't think it's much here.
But I see the amount in the Yika places a quantum behind Guam anywhere around me because I'm so afraid they're gonna remove me off the road, they're gonna like maybe I'm like, I'm just so afraid, and especially where Monte near SDS.
Monte is where you're from?
Yeah, it's from East London, from where I'm from. So literally there is like area. There's SDS, a home condo. And I was just driving willy-nilly. Where's going to go no taxi park? So half the time I'm afraid. And my parents did warn me, but when I started driving, I will go to Oxford and then take another route.
It goes back to London, but even now other drivers also don't feel safe around taxi drivers, right? And you talk about the fact that you try to tap into the market of e-hailing and how your experience was. We're gonna go into that. But I think also to look at the other side, in there has also been complaints about the hailing services. There was this famous video that Annele Mdoda once did where she she felt like she was in danger of her life of how the driver conducted himself, and then Gewa fortunately Orlando's video and everything, and at least that guy was dealt with by the Uber services. Right? But the thing is that the other downside about drivers, again, in the driving industry, is that you get rude people, you complain,
Exactly.
You know, I don't know if mhlambi y'all can comment down and tell us in the one mhlambi what we're saying is derogatory or out of this world or whatever, but we all open into it. But I just want you to open up about your experience, because with e-hailing services and how you were, because it was, the experience was for you, because we're trying to lead it to the fact that a young person died, who was trying to make money, meant about this, you know. But yeah, you can also share about your experience about that.
Yeah, of course. So, in terms of like e-hailing, I started with Bolt since it's there in East London. And then the process started was like, I just wanted to make a bit of extra money, you know. And it was after struggling of not finding any kind of part-time jobs, after applying and stuff like that.
Real.
And so I thought, okay, it's a good tapped potential. It's an area that has untapped potential. And I thought, okay, my parents helped with the process, where to get in, disc, I had to get my PP, né? PDP, yes, yeah. PDP.
I've heard that name before, but I'm not drivers, but I heard that name before around a lot. So
I had to get a PDP. All of that was in like January, and then okay, I studied a bit, but before going back up in school in then yeah, I did a bit of it. I think I did a week or two like of it. And it was a good experience because me driving around people, I already did that little bit like on my own thing, but now it's on a much like grander scale in terms of now actually getting imali. And so I started transporting people and stuff like that.
Talking about imali, is it a lucrative business? Like, could you say that you can make a living off e-hailing?
If you work at it and like you are pushing and you push the hours, you can literally see the money. Because okay, now I did a few excuse me, I did a few off. It was more on and off the thing with the Bolt, because I was still getting used to it. But at least by the end of the week, I think I made around like 600.
That's money.
And like, that's
money.
I'm like, and if I had fully gone into it, like actually have certain hours and no break within those hours and that time frame and stuff like that, I think I would have made more. Because with Bolt, they say you can, well, I researched about it, is that you can actually make about 2,000 per week. Yeah, about 2,000 per week. Like, even alone 2,000 and a week.
You're just traveling around. I mean, the next question would be, Indoba, do you think the reason why is Ngabano, because of imali, obviously, since it's a lucrative business, and you also explained the fact that you can get a lot of money. Do you think generally as abantu abamnyama asifuna ubonakala like siphumelela? Because let's be honest, the taxi industry is predominantly are black colored people, not really into the white sector. Same as e-hailing. You are likely to see a white driver. Like it's a space of abantu abamnyama. And ke ngoku thina abantu abamnyama, this is one thing my grandfather always said to me. And I think growing up to see as a zindo, you know, because right now, like, I feel like, do you essentially think in the Urbana as black people, we're just generally like fighting, and we can't sit down, and we can't just, if we're having a agreement or something written there, the first thing for us isn't obviously sitting down and talking, but we're just attacking one another.
Yeah, it's a lot, man. Too many stories that I've heard of abantu who had businesses and then they get shut down. That's what I've seen like on TikTok and whatever. I know it's not really reliable to have that, but it's just those kind of experiences. On TikTok, but I talked about having having like say a new job, or they're making money, and then people start talking them down by or stuff like that. And I think what I've seen is just out of, unfortunately, jealousy. That's a big thing. It's jealousy. And it's so bad because of the economic situation that it clouds a lot of people's judgment, not knowing that a lot of these people sacrifice a lot of things to make the money that they've made.
Do you think it's rooted on poverty? Because I feel like, hear me out. I think Tina Singabantu abamnyama were very much creative. Akhondo singakwazi uyenza. But I've seen life within a lens of poverty, and poverty can make you do things. Poverty can make you do something that you're not morally, you'd want to do. And I think this is what the problem is. Is that we're so stuck into poverty, and one was it's like we're animals and we're just scrambling around. And the first thing is which is point is to attack and not necessarily sit down and converse.
Exactly. I don't want to. It's very contentious to wanting to really. I understand poverty is a really sensitive topic because a lot of people go through it. I don't want to be making it seem like
it's just a thing.
Yeah, it's just a thing. I will never understand people going through that kind of thing. But through what I've seen, it can happen to literally anyone and stuff like that. And it's a really kind of horrible thing because with the economy the way it's going now, it's going to be even worse. Imagine go for people who are already struggling. What if the middle income just suddenly disappears? What about the people at the bottom?
Do we even have a middle income, middle class or middle income?
You see, those are the questions. But where are we? We're not there. And then imagine now, people at the bottom, they're already invisible. Now they've just become completely erased from from our minds and stuff like that. So it really is a kind of serious thing, and I don't want to take the poverty to light, but unfortunately it can lead to such ideas of wanting to have clouding a lot of judgment and moral things. And what I've said, okay, so for an example, what I've seen now through Bolt was one time I was transporting one of my classmates. Hey, I don't know how we met. About took when
classmates back in high school.
Yeah,
I know one of those things.
Hey, and stuff like that. Like we're talking, like, yeah, and she's like, so man, okay, you can see you're busy, about you're hustling, stuff like that. And I was saying, yeah, of course, I have to hustle. So of course, I was dropping her I think I was at Cambridge, the location was at Cambridge, like Cambridge West, I think. I was dropping her off there, and I was going through using the maps, and then after I dropped her off, and then I was waiting for my next download. That was my mistake because then both guys are amazing, Shem. Like, in terms of the brotherliness and the community, because he came to me one about except I had this thing where you attach on the window, and then you cause phone and stuff like that, so you can able to accept easier if you send those of phone holders. So I had those, and then what you found in Susalonto, because now bono takes about corner if bazokubona with bakuscouting ngalondo bazofuna ukuqhubeka night do something too. So I was like, okay, thanks brother, thanks so much. And it was like a guy my age, and I'm thinking, wow, he's actually like looking out for me and stuff like that, because he knows about the
thing is that a tough pan.
And
I mean, bruh, we can speak day in day out about this thing, but I love the fact that you guys have solitude and brotherhood within the business, and we also talk about the fact that it's lucrative. And man, I don't really want to throw in around the term of poverty, because I feel like those are misrepresented as Black people, that we always don't know with poverty and whatever. But we always try, also at the very same time, we need to understand the root cause as to why singabana be it in any spaces, be it in politics, be it in anything, as a vani generally. And I think zizinto ezizohlukane zezingxaki sinazo in our communities. And as ways, man, to also acknowledge umfana, I think Togo's the guy that passed away. And I saw on news outlet that his family is trying to raise funds for him to have a dignified funeral. Losing a young soul is just like one am I next, type of thing.
And it's so scary and stuff like that. And this guy was literally, when I was going through his stories, like all he was just trying to do was trying to provide for his family. If I'm right, I think he first wanted to get into SEPs, but he wasn't accepted. So then he was plan B, and I'm like, oh my goodness, literally that was his plan B.
Because you see, that's what I'm saying. we have young people going into spaces that are deemed dangerous, but why should we label them dangerous when they're making there's so much lucrative money?
Exactly.
Now I feel like I feel like when it comes to indima yobana, how can they sit around and talk about the e-hailing and taxi industry, because it's suspected that this guy was killed by taxi man, right? I feel like, in the beginning of our conversation, we talked about taxi industry being free, not free, but accessible for anyone, and also cheap, 15 rand.
Imagine.
Awunoxaba 15 rand ungumntu.
Exactly.
Uyabona xa uzibona uba ke inyanga inkekele, umane zokhwela itaxi that e-hailing as a cost 50 rand or whatever. And I feel like nalando identifying market yenu into yoba okay, thina bantu bayaluza, abantu sosoloko sinabo. Yabona abantu basoloko badinga into zokhwela itaxi okokoko.
That's the argument, because I could never, and I don't understand it, but that especially going back to that point you said that they're taking the bread out of their mouths. I'm like, the bread will always be there, because I think they're forgetting who we are. This is South Africa.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, majority of the population uses taxis, or maybe 80 to 70% uses taxis. And maybe that bantu that have cars are expensive. There's worse going on e-hailing that's gonna cost even more. Maninzi abantu who still need taxis even now, bakwazi nokubakokelela lo sandanyana bakwazi ukhwela itaxi ke ngoku, unlike uBolt, and that means that income coming in every time. Taxi can also make quite a lot of money.
They do.
Because for an example, my parents had I don't really want to talk about it, but I'll just make it brief. So my parents did try get into the taxi but they had e-tests as it who and stuff like that, whatever, and we had the taxi drivers and being young and they can be rude, and especially worse when having those like the 76 meters, they tend not to unfortunately look after them. So there was that kind of problem, and they had to stop it because it was big money. But seeing through that, it was actually big money, there was money coming in, and obviously to my mother, they are making they're making more money on the side. Money more than the one he's giving us, because you will be transporting people up and down every day. It's not like a part-time thing where we are sebenza, then you have your job on the side, which is going to cut into your hours, 2 years of that money. You have people who are going to work every day. How much worse is it during, their first, second, third, fifth, 15, exactly, 15, 20, all those days, like 31st, there's loads of opportunities to make money there. So it's really unrealistic, and it's unfortunately great. Unfortunately, it's taking that, because they are making the money, but they don't want anyone touching that money, and that's wrong. And with that thing you said, anyone can come in. Unfortunately, as much as they say they're regulated, why isn't there any kind of training or kind of screening that comes into the taxi association? Yes, but so we know about who has done the work, who's diligent.
I think this is why also preferably e-hailing, because they have the people's profiles. So if anything happens to you, it's quick to identify.
Exactly.
Whereas ngoku uzawuthi ubambe nama-plate kuthiwa hayi le moto ibiqhutywa ngubani, hayi ubani khange angene ibithethe. So there's a lot of so I think to kind of ukuqukumbela le nto, and I feel like it hits home because I both use the services of e-hailing and taxi, and now I've all had my own fair share of saying into yoba yazi into, I man F them taxi drivers and whatnot. But I understand, because I have friends who actually are taxi drivers right now. I know families who are taxi owners, and I know into mali and but they're feeding off their kids and they're growing and all of that. Same as my friends who also taxi drivers, they're trying to make a living out of themselves. Same as this guy who passed away right now, who's trying to make a living out of themselves. All I can say from this is that let's just have meaningful way of coexisting. Abazophela abantu abazorequesta umzekelo ngoku I have an upcoming event. the first time I land I don't mean jongana neteksi bayizana because kaloku kuthiwa iteksi isuka apha iyangapha iyathungana neteksi. No,
Exactly.
I'm gonna use my Bolt.
It's gonna take you from A to B.
And no one is gonna. There's this new thing that they were trying to do now. Now you have a car and you're my friend, and let's say checkers, and now I'm like, oh, I'm not feeling it. My ankle hurts again, whatever. If you come in, okay, but hey, man, can't they were trying to make that not allowed, unlawful for you to do that. Dude, because we 15 rand each. So this is when now people are also frustrated on something. But you guys just see it as money, but it's my decision to take one and disavow.
Exactly.
So that's what I'm saying.
And it's convenient as
I
well.
feel like within the taxi industry, they need to lower it down when it comes to their attitude and how they do things. And also, I feel like when they're saying, these e-hailing services are not regulated, I think that when within themselves, they need to, when they talk about regulation, who's training to what you were going to talking about, training your drivers. And I feel like Nati, as no taxi drivers.
Exactly.
As no taxi drivers. So I feel like also now, then I feel like this is where I was saying always when as black people want to point off our tech because this industry is talking about black people. So if we can sit down and say if they sat down and had a conversation and say, but look, man, there's a market for both of our services.
Exactly.
How can we work around this thing?
Exactly, and it was so painful like from the family when I was seeing the videos, Kala and stuff like that. Were like, they're just so devastated. It was so painful because this is a person who was supposed to be bringing money into the family. And they saw but he was ambitious. He was trying so many different things. And it'd be like, it's so painful because nowadays young people want to do that. But in Jani, when we have, industries like this, or people within the industry who want to cut you down, would even kill you because they don't want my level being taken away when like we're trying our best. There's nothing we're not trying. Now and stuff like that. Now it's gonna be making us scared, but so Puma out in the country and I don't find a job, and the only things that are possibly suitable is Bolt because that's where people make the money and stuff like that. You call money up within the transport industry. There is money because people need to go from A to B, and so young people must just sit, give up, sit down, maybe. And this is what's gonna also lead to incidents of drugs and stuff like that because people are gonna be feeling like it's useless now. We'll just rather die from we'll just die within the work. Let me just die now. Drugs.
Do you think I'm gonna go into the substance abuse part, and I feel like it's a problem that we even have as young people. I think now we're following we're moving from what we're talking about, just having a general conversation. Do you think that the government should take interest into this e-hailing and taxi driving in this industry war that is happening? Because and I feel like even though the taxi industry is a private, same as e-hailing is private things, but these private entities are used by the general public. And I feel like umthetho ufuna kuyange eyawudlala indima yawo and udlala indima yayo in this way because I feel like umthetho ungadlala in a sense of ungenelele kwezi zinto into yoba ube i-comment like the department of it, we have a whole minister of transport. So makahlale phansi umamzo agqibahle because that's my check, was a woman. Umamzo makahlale phansi nabo adibanisa inhloko uthetho kubonakalisa way forward at the end of the day, the people that are going to be at the firing line here is the same people that you guys are fighting on about.
Exactly. And I believe that we do really need more government intervention. A lot of people, I know you guys are going to be like, I know government and stuff like that.
Because young people are like, wherever. I mean, I still believe, I think what made me believe in government is my studies in politics and in university. That we're saying, we don't care, but at the very same time, if we don't utilize the same entities and systems that we have, because at the very same time, we all cannot be employed. We all can't be not employed. We all can't be self-employed, right?
That's the thing. Yeah.
So I feel like uhulumende ungena njani ngokule ndima into yobana ajonge into yoba okay abantu abangena kule industry njengoba umfana he was young and this was his alternative. Had the government invested more in these programs of trying to create skills for people so that they could be employable, we wouldn't have situations where our young people are going to these quote-unquote dangerous places or dangerous industries right now, to a point where one has to lose their life based on the fact that they're going in as an alternative, but not as a,
first choice.
First choice. And also two things. Government ensuring that unemployment rate here to be done at all costs, so that secondly, understanding that as much as we're saying it's the private industry, the taxi industry or the transportation industry, we need to find ways by way because what we're seeing as if it's a war outside. It's just like whereas we know, even I would be shocked that, but even they also do use your Bolt non-donor, so the affected of this whole.
That's the thing, and really you don't need them there because they could provide a mediating point. They don't have to be there completely. They can just be there as public-private. You need to have that kind of balance as to know about how can we navigate such an avenue like this, because it's a seriously sensitive issue, and had really the government been there, we wouldn't have lost such a young life. Already we're losing so many people in South Africa, especially young people in the future, because of over petty things, because I saw Zipele, what I'm gonna argue this I saw Penny money. It's never going to be 15 rand here and there. We can make it up again the following time, and you're doing it every day.
Every second of the day. To go 5 hours, baphangela 5. Abantu balazi ne fix the contract nabantu abaphangela kwezi shop ezithile kuthiwa staff secretary, like whatever school, like I'm saying, money is always there.
Money is always there, so I can never understand in that outside, but it's not gonna be. It's always there, so you don't have to be greedy about it. But
and also nyani allowing space, guys. Nyani asking abantu. We want to have preference, guys. Exactly.
Exactly. Now Bolt. And Bolt Deluxe, going on a BMW or something like that.
Uber Premium, Uber Black. Yeah, well, it's called the option in the band from Tirana. Whereas when I'm not taking so
and with that as well, also with an experience with Uber. There's also this new thing where women can also be Bolt, but it's also allowing women to be within there as well, because there's also that idea.
I did this clocking thing. I did this clocking thing in a meeting, a student leadership meeting, and they thought I was raising my hand. I was like, no, the President Cyril Ramaphosa clocks it, so you all need to know how to clock it.
Let's clock it, guys. So with all Bolts, this what's this? What is the question? Oh yeah, woman only Bolt, where women can cross a boat that is only driven by a woman, and as well, but it's for women only, basically increasing the amount of safety. I haven't seen it yet being out there, but it's being established. They have researched it, Googled and stuff like that. But okay, there is a woman-only category. As there are different categories. There's Bolt only, there's sedan, there's whatever. So we have lots of options can go, and safer options can go. Unfortunately, in terms even more than it takes, because unfortunately, we won't see any. My sister, maybe if we had them, they could be safer on the road. But unfortunately, since it's such a male-dominated space, they will get bullied out. And we know in South Africa, injury violence is unfortunate.
There's a lot of things we can talk about in this podcast, bro. But another one I want us to tap into is substance abuse. Guys, we I don't know how many times I've watched anything to do with substance abuse. I think when it comes to substance abuse cases, alcohol, and we talk also about drugs, which is cocaine and stuff like that. Even weed now, apparently, it's a substance abuse, but other people argue differently or whatever. But I want us to talk about the impact of it in young people. We're young people. We've been exposed to alcohol. And I want us to talk about the first time you were exposed to alcohol, just briefly. Yeah, but I don't know whether to first start with you or should I talk about my self-experience.
Okay, I can say with alcohol, mostly started around, I think, between the transition, between grade 7 and 8, normally around high school times like that, because about, no, I think it was grade 7, but I didn't have it. And now
you were exposed to it, so
like the band was going out and stuff like that. It started really in grade 8. The exposure started in grade 8 and 9. When now people were like, stuff like that, whatever. And now, okay, people out there now, having wanting to go out,
now so you're saying, not to cut you, are you saying that you were exposed to alcohol by consuming it in like 8th grade or 9th grade, around those times?
I would say more. Actually, I'm gonna talk about it. I was exposed more earlier in terms of that because my dad used to us party and number 1 or 2 at Portilla and stuff like that, and then there was nobody would give us like a bottle 1 or 2 and stuff like that. So I can say my exposure started more at home, but what I'm going to really advocate that it was really a more controlled exposure.
It was not like, oh, dad is coming as a drunkard,
no.
Not
like that. If there is alcohol around, you'd be like, maybe you might give us like say a sip or just something like that just to have on home. A lot of people will say that, but you're wrong, that's going to cause substance abuse and whatever. But in actual fact, it's really kind of toned me down on it and stuff like that.
Give you autonomy that and also
yes.
like it's a thing.
Yes.
It's a normal thing. So that means that
yes, that's what a lot of people have noticed with my friends, especially in high school. Like getting deep because why actually exactly. Then you learn to sneak around and you drink it.
And then it becomes a problem.
It becomes a problem because you're used to drinking it heavy loads rather than, you
have your own taste bud. But okay,
and it's removing the mysticism around alcohol. It's just being this magical liquid that's going to take your problems away. It can be enjoyable once in a while, but rather it's a liquid. It's something that it's an actual thing. It's dangerous. I've seen some of my family members, it's dangerous, but it also can be enjoyable. It's a double-edged sword. But the thing is, within South Africa, it's just by it's being taken to an extreme level where umtu just drinks to drink away their problems. And I think it was really beneficial in terms of that, in that exposure. Had I not had that early exposure, especially when I was getting here to university, I think it was, I think my dad really did an amazing thing because I wouldn't even be here. I would be drinking the entire vat even now. Exactly. Yeah, so that's the thing. I think a month. I'm like, no, it's not water to me. I can go months to even about a year without thinking about it. Or being around it, or if I'm around it, I'm not even tempted. I'm not pressured to drink. I'll be like, nah, I'm good. I don't want to.
I mean, I was asking this because I was exposed to alcohol. We're Christian people, right? And when people say Christian, I always hate it because like, what do you mean Christian? So ndikhulele was kumxhosa, so into ezifana imicimbi neentoni ziyenziwa yabona. So I was exposed to the butywala, that butywala busela xa bukuthile and whatever. But when I'm saying I'm a Christian, I was raised in a household where we were not allowed to have alcohol within our premises. I don't know if you're swinging into the nomama kuphambe okanye mhlawumbe ufika utata afike esela utywala ayenziwa loo nto yebona ngumntana kamfundisi, there was that controlled vibe of it. But then I have a very spontaneous aunt who doesn't give a hell of who you say she would drink her alcohol. Right. So and I was raised in that thing. And when they ask about boy and girls, there's different connotations into it.
Not really, because Sabo was also raised in Sabo Christian household, but more Utata was the one who more liberal than Mama. and I used to go to church a lot, sort of like interjecting like, but you have similarities because now I was raised when I was going to church every day and stuff like that and whatever. And so I'm going to say Sunday school, camps, and so now I was also kind of in that thing, just more differently was but how did I fight between, because mama's liberal, dada is not, so what was that dynamic, and especially in terms of events like in and stuff like that, dada might advocate it for it, but mama might not, so those kind of things.
I mean, look, Nakumo, it was a universal thing that you're not gonna drink, you are not gonna do this, you're not gonna do that. Oh, we were going to ban palala. That was all palala. So it was that thing. And also Namu, I think also I'm gonna share something personal of how stories about my dad. I've never met my dad. So the stories around him was that he got something and then he relied on alcohol and drowned his sorrows away. Right? I don't know if that's true, but growing up I had that. Alcohol is bad because once you start consuming it, you get addicted to it, and then you think that it's a problem solver, but it's not. So, but in my back of my mind, I was like, I want to be a responsible somebody. So I've always been somebody all under imitated. So whenever Taubana was add, I think that's another problem. Is that the reason why we have an alcohol problem in our country is that of how it was advertised, it is even and whatever. So I would always read not the age out of 18, not the age out of 18. So in my brain I was like, under 18, but not gonna lie, way before I've tasted, even after I've tasted alcohol, I still don't like the smell of alcohol.
That's a good thing.
I still don't like it. I don't like the smell of alcohol, but now going into high school, and then I was exactly on my 18th birthday. And go for the first time. It's raw. Literally, it felt like I will never forget that feeling.
Yes.
It felt like I was disconnecting to myself. It felt like I was doing something wrong. I don't know, man. That feeling is I remember that feeling more than one would say talking about bringing up their virginity. It's something that's still embedded to me. Like how, like, I don't know.
Alcohol virginity.
Dude, it throws virginity. Like, I will never forget. Every time I drink alcohol, I can never get to that feeling of how I was feeling for the first time. Downing down Lando. I don't know, man, like I had an outer body experience. And then it became a thing, but when I was introduced to alcohol, it was a weekend thing. Weekend gas. And then I got to see I'm not actually tasting it, but okay, I was in that near break of mana now every weekend, and that's when okay, that was becoming a problem. Now the can't go why I said mine is short. It's short, so those are the problems that we have as young people that and I feel like from a very young age I've always been a person who hates things happening to me, be it physically, thoughtfully, emotionally, and I'm not having words to explain it. Why the flipping hell am I consuming alcohol weekend and weekend? This doesn't make sense. How did I move on from not even having
exactly something
and I felt like the group of friends I was around with, we were not having those conversations, and thank God I had to move back home because I started drinking alcohol when I was away from home. And then now I got to sit down with myself and actually sit down and be like, I don't like alcohol. Like I'm at a stage where I am comfortable to be with people that are drinking alcohol and be like, oh, it's fine. Tell any Coke, tell any cheers, punch the right. There's zero alcohol, so obviously. So it took time for me to have a process, and I feel like that's where most of young people fall into it. How alcohol has always been romanticized as this beautiful beverage. That necessarily would say take away your problems. If it doesn't take away your problems, it makes you forget.
And makes you confident as well.
Yeah, it makes you confident, which is bullshit. Like we literally had fucking ads where people were like showing up to you're acting all macho. This is where now things linked to sexual harassment, sexual assault, because it's a whole bill, like you're intertwined, and I feel like we need to have a conversation with ourselves as young people. like the hype around figure, the bottles, guys. Ukyola is not really about it. Anyway, this is my own perspective, okay, my own opinion about it. But the more we don't romanticize alcohol and make it seem like if like like a local the more I feel like the less we can have problems about alcoholism, and we can actually treat utywala as into okay yinto ekhoyo apha emhlabeni and masingayiweni and it's inabantu bayo.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And especially coming from our backgrounds would be that we had that kind of education where like utywala is treated as something yasemhlabeni, but treated with something that is treated with respect, basically. We had that kind of conversation, because it's going to be a hot take, but I think Landoba for city coming from a strict household, especially if like city's household from a Christian household, they aren't going to teach you that thing. But Juala is a substance, my child. It's both good and bad. Please know how responsible to use. They'll just tell you straight away. And if you know you that's going to create what you're saying. It romanticizes alcohol as well.
Because the lendo ngazange wayazi and ngoku kuthiwa alcohol, and I feel like abantu ne siyakhula ne, but sisenza tendencies zobuntwana. I feel like nakum tendencies zobutywala, it was always a thing, but uyafuna usibambe izitovu nesibona uba sishushu, but ke umane kuthiwa hada awukufikelele wena ubambelele ngoba okay ishushu lento mandingathi. And I think also it goes back to lendo uthetha into bana nyani ke I feel like we need to have conversations about zininzi mani izinto I feel like seeing about young people that are suffering from right now, and we can see that we're suffering from, and we've never really had a blueprint about kutheni into ethile ungayenzi kuvese kuthiwa hayi suyenza ethile.
So exactly.
Umzekelo with amantombazana as predominantly kuthiwa ungathintili. Once you break away at the varsity space, ngoku ungunondathaza singamaziyo. Uyabona amantombazana everywhere. Uyabona, because you were not taught these days. That's what I'm saying. But I feel like if anything, this podcast is to talk about things like that, things that we were never actually told to talk about and voice out, and how it made you feel, at the time. But one step at a time, guys. And I feel like wow, it's been over an hour. It's been over an hour now us talking. So yeah, man. The issue of alcoholism, I think the reason why we have an alcoholism problem, there are a lot of factors. Abanye abantu would say, but predominantly African people were not abantu babesela. Wine yaza nabantu abalantuza. Yeah, I don't know how your thoughts about that. But I was watching this and they're saying, but imikomboti isula ngemicimbi ethile, yayinabantu abathile. Yabona, and different perspectives around that. But I think eyona China asileli ndima yemikombothi nendoni into esilwelayo is
white men
with the white men uyabona. And also going about white men ke yabona thina abantu abakhulele kucawe kwimando sicawe ngokwendlu ezi-strict ifani lalo into mara ungazusela utywala ngathini kodwa eBhayibhelini kuthiwa uThixo watshinika amanzi wayenze wine.
And like
so I feel like also in our households we really need to have open conversations and also not treat abantwana as a linear thing, but can't make have a structure kwakho, but there's a difference between structure and authoritarian law because guys is cool. After you're done with your high school,
exactly.
And then you come to now Rhodes University, and now Rhodes University, there's just some wardens, people who don't have control or oversee your life 24/7. Unlike when you're back home, you get exposed to things. So.
And when you don't have the proper guidance for those things, they will affect you. And then you were like, university, university, because you didn't teach them, but rather have know how to treat yourself. Like I've seen these things on I think it's Reddit, but like in about different, like I've researched them and stuff like that, and be like, I've heard these things, but if maybe you're not comfortable with the parents, understandable. But if you are comfortable with the parents, have like this thing, but I don't think I'm can do it, but may have that thing, but like call up your parent, but and you're not feeling comfortable, and be like, and they call right, and deceive. That way they can help you, advise you in different ways, knowing but by the time and you're alone, but okay, mama advised me not to do this, baba not advised me not to do that. Then let me not do it. Then when you also see it and stuff like that, then we're right. And it needs to start small, yes, by have those conversations. By the time some dialogue go to be ingrained in your mind, and it will be like a habit and stuff like that. Like I said, and I know it's a personal thing, but I do believe that they're not giving me this 1 or 2 siders here and there that I teach for myself. And you see, but now my head that idea, but okay, and okay, this one's more sweet, this one is low or whatever, just to get to know. Because I even asked him one time on a personal note, I was like, hey, Dad, did you purposely teach me, like, did you give me a little book? Yeah, what's the air? Because I wanted you, I normally gave you guys like during family events so that you're in a controlled environment. Didn't born an ninjani. And to know, but and even because in certain places abantu bazofuna unxila and then they want to badakwe umuntu rather it tells me no, have it at your place with the family, right to straight people. After about chill people straight after there are no incidences because that's where these incidences happen. Nxilwe phaa kude nobethaveni nomuntu ngokutsho whatever, rather you could have just had it at your place. Yeah.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Umzekelo nyani mna into ndimanyana ukuyala andiqalisanga, and it took me to a journey because I saw it as like a shameful thing. I didn't ndiqhalane nale nto, and ufika abanye abantu bayawucrave. I'm not a crave of alcohol. I don't crave, and thank God that your dad had this unpopular way of teaching you how to do, of how to delve into the space of Ujwala, and how you also were wise enough to take it as an indlela eyiyo, and that form of communication that you had with that, because nyani abanye abantwana asifundiswa ngatyala thina afika atsho mama athi zange ndafundiswa tyala mazange ndithini yabo, but at the very same time iyadingeka laa nto into yobana abantwana nyani I feel like a lot of things in this world, things that were troubling us as young people, could have been avoided had we were given a chance to sit down and have a conversation,
just open up.
And I think this is why I look at my younger siblings and I'm like, I want to make sure I'm not gonna be superior, but I want to make sure the questions that you had, of a younger sister, like about periods, why are they telling me not to do this with guys and not, I want my sister to be open about her gender and her sexuality, things I can never have, and also if mhlambi you want to explore something, my youngest brother is a great musician, not musician but umculo uyathanda ucula yabo, doesn't know how to tap into that yabona, because there's a structure sits around to teach but okay how we vocalist ungenza so, and I feel like there are a lot of people out there who have beautiful and creative minds and beautiful people but are not given a chance.
That's the thing.
Yeah, man. I think that's how we're gonna end off this conversation. All this episode basically of all that we need to do is to create a space for people to come in and just chat, and say what's on their mind. Vent.
We need to vent with
and vent. But yeah, guys, I hope you guys watched till now, and if you skip right into it and you bothered by YouTube videos and whatnot, please bear with us. And yeah, man, this is our first time. Please don't be harsh with us. That's all we had from Rising Sunshine from me, Ulilita. I don't want to say the host that does the most because I feel like it's somebody's catchphrase, but I'm going to say from me, Ulilita, Magama Wusa, Ulili to AP, PZ. We are out as the Rising Podcast team, and hopefully we'll engage with you guys more often as we see your progress. Bye.
Please catch us on the next episode with Thokozani Mthembu as we discuss the birth rate decline in South Africa.